Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Andy's Shed Live. This is Series 13, episode number 12 for Sunday the 22nd of October 2023. Hello there everybody and welcome to the show. Two more to go, well this one and one more to go after this, so two shows to go before the big swap to Odyssey. So it'll be bye bye YouTube, although the shows will hopefully still appear on YouTube. You just won't be able to interact on YouTube with them anymore, because all the interactive stuff will be switching over to Odyssey from the beginning of November. So there's something to look forward to something to look forward to for you in November. That was a bit of a tongue twister to get out. Also, hello to everybody who is there in the old chat today. Just hang on, let me stop that. I'm going. That's that. Yeah, hello to everybody who is in the chat. We've got Dominic, Christopher, Miguel, Wesley, Bills, Fat Hobbit, and Keith. All here so far. I'm just going to catch up with it because there's quite a bit in it. Good evening, Andy and everyone. I have a stinky horrid cold, says Bills. He says, I'm afraid I don't have the other option, so you'll lose a grower, but thank you so much for your help. Bakelite no, all working very happily. Well, you'll still be able to watch it, Bills. You'll still be able to watch us on YouTube, but you just won't. The chat won't be on YouTube. But I'm not sure why you don't have the other option, because everybody who can watch YouTube should be able to watch Odyssey. If you, the easy way to do it will be to go to our website, Andy Shed, which is andyshed.coldpress.net/live. And you will be able to see it there if you can't find us on Odyssey. That's andyshed.coldpress.net, and then it'll be /live, and you'll be able to see it on there. Christopher says, I've been doing a bit of telephone line rewiring in my railway room because my mum accidentally pulled the drop wire to my junction box going to the Ericsson and 1970B. Oops. It says hello everybody. I wonder what toppings Andy had in his pizza. Well, Fat Hobbit, it was a pepperoni pizza, but I cut a pepper up, a homegrown pepper out of the greenhouse. I cut a pepper up and stuck on it a chili pepper as well. So it was a pepperoni pizza with extra chili pepper. Keith says, evening everyone. And Dominic says, that reminds me, I need to pop my pizza in the oven. Back in 20 minutes. Yeah, it'd take 20 minutes to put it in the oven, Dominic. Christopher says, I sent a photo of my trim phones in the email. It's not got here yet, Christopher. Don't know where that one is, but I've not seen that yet. Probably somewhere in the ether. It's been acting a bit funny, the email and that, just lately. Wesley says, I think I'll have to be catching up rather than watching live, unfortunately. Why? He says, I'm assuming they will be on YouTube for catch-up. Yes, possibly. YouTube will very much become a second fiddle, and I don't think you'll want to watch on YouTube anymore, because the whole reason that we're changing to Odyssey is because YouTube is changing the way it deals with ads and things, and you are going to get bombarded with so many ads that you can't remove and can't skip, including ones that are sticky on the display. That's the latest thing they've announced this last week, that they're going to put sticky ads on a page that won't move. If the page moves, the ads will stay there, blocking your part of your screen. You are going to get so bombarded with ads, I don't think you'll want to watch on YouTube anymore. This is the whole reason that we're moving. because basically we can't monetize YouTube without running millions of ads on it, and the ads are so intrusive that we don't think that's an option. So we are going to Odyssey, which is more based on cryptocurrency and things, and doesn't rely so much on ads to keep going. If you look back, Odyssey is based on the library platform for how it works, and if you look back way back in my videos on YouTube, there was a video called How to Use Library, and that explains all about how the library platform works. It looks like YouTube, but it works in a totally different way that is not reliant on big, very expensive servers at Google. Yeah, it's a very different way that Odyssey works. Where it falls down is if you watch it on something like a smart TV, you might not have an app to watch Odyssey. But smart TVs generally do have a thing, a web browser built in. Mine certainly does. So if you go to the website andyshed.coldpress.net/live, you will be able to watch there live, and there will also on the website be a thing for you to interact in the Odyssey chat. So those of you that watch on a smart TV but chat via the pop-out chat on a smartphone, you will still be able to go on our website and find a window, hopefully, with the chat on. Whereas it says, that's my problem, I have no browser, unfortunately. Well, you should have one on a smart TV. All smart TVs should have a browser function in them somewhere. It may be well hidden, but it should have a web browser in it somewhere. Why is Thor barking? Thor, what's up? What are you barking for? Do you want to go out? Come on then. Good boy. As I was saying, it may be well hidden, but all smart TVs should have a browser option in them. And if you can't watch on your smart TV, watch on a phone, watch on a smartphone. Dominic says, did you get the worst of Storm Babette, Andy? Round me it's flooded around the mill, if you're familiar with Belper. I am familiar with Belper Mill. I have been in Belper Mill. We got some of it, Dominic. We got some of it. But it went away as quickly as it came. One of my dog walking clients got flooded. Odin, who I think Odin the dog has appeared on here before now. Has Odin the dog ever appeared on here? A big white dog. But Odin was flooded. His owner had to carry him out of the house and wade through waist-deep water to get him to safety. She then had to stand with him for an hour and a half in the pouring rain, in soaking wet clothes, until a mum made what should be a 15-minute journey to rescue her and take her back to her house. But you'll be pleased to know that both Odin and his owner are fine and okay, and luckily they are insured, I'm told, so things will be okay for them. Yeah, it came and went again. I mean, I was talking to them on Friday morning, and the sort of stream that runs by the back of the house was high but fine. This all happened on Friday afternoon, stroke evening, and Saturday morning it had all gone again. And the layman wouldn't have known there'd ever been a flood there. But of course, although it was quick to come and go, once it's been, no matter how quick it's been there, it's done the damage. Yeah, unfortunately, that's happened to a lot of people. You don't see the damage now 2 days later, but it is there, and it's happened to a lot of the people. But I have to say, it is not due to natural occurrences. It is certainly not due to global warming. It is due to greedy developers and idiots at the local council altering road layouts, building houses on floodplains, not getting off the backside and dredging rivers and streams, not clearing out drains. That is what it is down to. It is purely down to human corruption and laziness on the part of the local authorities. There wasn't a particularly huge amount of rain. We've had far more rain than that in the past, and it's not caused so much chaos. But it is down to basically people not doing their job. And I am livid about it. I know exactly why Odin and his owner were flooded. I know exactly, I can point to the place where there was supposed to be an outlet for a stream that came out of a small reservoir. I can show that stream wasn't kept clear as it should have been. It was all silted up and weeded up, and so when the reservoir overflowed and it had to go down this overflow, there was nowhere for the water to go, and it all teemed out into a field behind the house, and then into the house once it got to a certain level. Yeah, that's the problem. But the people who own the field don't care, because they're wanting to sell it to build something like 1,500 houses on it, as far as I'm aware. So what do you think is going to happen to those houses when it floods? Yes. Bolsover District Council, it is. As bent as a 9-bob note, let me tell you. Christopher says, I will be able to watch you live stream with Odyssey on my projector, my old laptop hooked up with my projector. That sounds like an interesting way of watching it, Christopher. Dominic says there are no trains running north of Derby too. Yeah, they did have problems in Sheffield with the trains, Dominic, with the floods, which is ironic because there's a massive drain called the Megatron right underneath Sheffield Station. But I would have thought it was back to normal now. I heard today there were problems with train services in Scotland, but we're not in Scotland, so I would have thought it was back to normal by now, but I don't know. Right, let me go and get the dog in, because I don't know where he is at the minute. Oh, he is in. Get back in, Thor. Good boy. Good boy, Thor. Good boy. He's in and he's laid down. I put him a table lamp on in the room in there so it's not too light for him. Because sometimes I think he likes to go in the dark. So he's in there, sort of in the twilight, laid down, having a little nap. Right, I'm still catching up with this chat. Michael T says, I only use crypto for one thing, to buy my cannabis flowers. It's not, well, it's not actually cryptocurrency. It's kind of using cryptocurrencies systems. Odyssey and Library are a bit complicated to explain, but it uses blockchains and distributed distributed services to actually store the videos and things. Like I say, what's the old video? I made it maybe 4 or 5 years ago now. How to use library, and it explains all about it. Yeah, it's interesting. It's a decentralized system. It's a thing, you know, where people are having trouble with YouTube deleting their channels. People who do YouTube for a living are getting their channels deleted. There was a guy recently who made videos about 3D printing, and for some reason got his channel deleted, and YouTube don't even tell you why they've done it. Well, with Odyssey they can't do that, and with Library they can't do that. They can't delete things. It's impossible, because it's all on the community's own computers and things. It's a very clever system, and when it first started it was a bit clunky, but now it's had 3 or 4 years to kind of mature. It's got a lot better. In fact, it's got so good that there's recently been a court case about it in the US, because basically the US government and big business do not want Odyssey and Library around because they can't control it. So yeah, because I'm all for freedom of speech and free internet, and that is what the internet was built to be. It was built to be a free and open platform, and I don't like it when big business tries to control it. That's why I don't use any Microsoft software. That's why I'm getting away from everything Google. I've never had an Apple product ever in my life, and don't intend to start now. So yeah, it's all things like that. Hello, Thor. Hello. Are you coming? Coming to say hello? Good boy. Thor is here. He's a bit damp. Is it raining outside again? He's a bit damp. Wesley says, is it not owned by Google? No, Odyssey is not owned by Google, Wesley. No. Odyssey is owned by... they are American, the people who own it, but I think it's owned basically by about 4 or 5 people in America at the heart of it. But it is maintained by the community. What's Thor eating? What are you eating? What are you eating? Hey? What you got? What you got? What you chomping on? What is it? Just one moment, the dog is eating something. What are you eating? Come on, let's have a look. Show me. Show me. What have you got? It was a stone. Why was he eating a stone? Why were you eating a stone? Eh? Why were you eating a stone? You just had your tea, haven't you? Yes, you just had your tea. Are you coming to say hello to all these people here, though? Are you coming to say hello? Thor? Thor? Come on, come here. Come on, come up here and say hello. No? Not saying hello? Alright then. Dry yourself out. You're a bit damp because you've been outside, haven't you? You're a bit damp because you've been outside. Hey? Big daft lad, aren't you? He's here. Yeah, did you see a tail then? Yeah, you're here, aren't you, Thor? You're here. You want to say hello to people? Come on then. Come back here if you want to say hello. You got to come back here. Thor, turn round. Back here, look. Come on. You know. Right, say it. Look. Yeah, no, stand there. Stand there, look. Look up there. Look up there and say hello. Look. Woo! There. Hello. Hello, says Thor. Good boy. Oh, there's a clock chiming, Thor. There's a clock chiming. The reason there's a clock chiming, and it's part of why this this show is titled what it is today, i.e. things that I didn't go in for, is because last week my friend Alan wanted a whistling kettle. I think I probably told you this last week. He wanted a whistling kettle, so I went into a local antique shop looking for a whistling kettle because I couldn't find one anywhere else. Didn't find a whistling kettle, but did end up coming out with a telephone and a mantle clock. So absolutely classic, not what you went in for. But yes, yeah, that's what we ended up with. So yeah, we ended up with all kinds of stuff. One thing of which was the mantle clock that is currently up here. You see that? There's two up there. The one at the back I'm working on at the minute. The one at the front, this one here, is the one that I picked up in the antique shop the other day. I paid a £5 for it, but it was minus a pendulum, so I borrowed a pendulum out of another one just to get it going, and it's running nicely. So I just need a pendulum for a Smith's mantle clock at the minute. If anybody has got a pendulum for a Smith's mantle clock kicking around, let me know, please. Right, I've moved my camera now, haven't I? It'll take me ages to get that back in the right place. Right, that's it. So yeah, that's one of the things that I didn't go in for and came out with. And the thing I went for, which was a whistling kettle, I haven't got one. Got plenty of kettles, but not a whistling one. So that was a bit of a bummer. But other things have arrived as well recently. So one thing that I got from the antiques shop was the phone that you saw last week. But this week another phone has also arrived. If you want to see it, I just need to move things a bit. This desk is getting very, very cluttered. Can I shift things a bit so I've got a bit of space? Because another phone has arrived this week, and that's this from Belgium. The Belgians are coming. So yeah, this has arrived. Let's say from Belgium. This is a Belgian telephone, basically. They only came in two colours, one of which was black and one of which was ivory, and they were plain. Now you may have seen these on the internet for sale. They pop up quite regularly on eBay, and you'll have seen them in all different colours, including black and ivory, with kind of gold decals down here, all sort of fancy gold trim on them down here. That gold trim is not correct, and neither is this copper finish. What happened was, when they finished with these telephones in Belgium, they sold them on in large batches, and the people who bought them, the antiques dealer type people who bought them, had them all refinished, and it's them who had them repainted, and the gold trim pieces put on them down here. And it's them that also had some of them stripped and replated, and they either plate them in copper or chrome. There are chrome ones out there as well. This happens to be a copper one, and although it's not actually correct for the phone, it's something that's been done to it in later life, I do actually quite like it. I have started polishing it. I've polished this bit round here and all around the front. I've not done up here yet, and I've not done the back, because I didn't want to make it too polished for this live stream, because I thought we might have a similar problem to what they have on Star Wars with C-3PO's suit, in that it might get too shiny and reflect all the lights and things. So I've not polished it too much yet. But this is the copper plated phone. They're actually made out of a metal alloy, the case of them. They are incredibly heavy. They've got this built-in brass handle as well. They don't lift up straight until you put the handset on, and then the handset kind of holds them so you can lift them up a bit more. But this one I got quite cheap because the dial was stuck on it. I have now freed it off. You'll notice there's no finger stop. The finger stop for some reason is missing, but it has been messed with a lot, this phone, because one of the gongs was loose inside it, held in with a bit of sticky tape. So I've got to do something about putting that in. But other than that, it does work. So I've got to refit this gong and sort it out. But other than that, it does work. This, it is quite a nice little phone. So that is one of the latest arrivals. In fact, it is the latest arrival. It came this week. So that's the latest telephone to get here. So there you have it. It is quite a nice thing. I do quite like it. I've got a couple others of this type of phone, but the others are black ones, and one of them at least is a refurbished one with the gold bits down each side here. And I got one of them working a while ago. The other one I don't think is working, needs rewiring. This one is working. It came not working, and I just sort of took it apart and jiggled the wires around a bit, and it started working. So I think they must just doing a bad contact somewhere, and now it's working. But you just have to be careful when you dial, because there's no actual finger stop on it. You have to look for where the finger stop is, or where the finger stop should be, and stop yourself from dialing any further. But it's quite a nice phone. I may even use it as a desk phone here, to replace this black 706 clone for a bit. Might have a bit of a change of desk phone. What do you think? Michael says, my Mr. Cat died in January, still coming to terms. Oh, sorry to hear that, Michael. Yeah, you don't get used to it, do you? It takes a long time. I've been talking to one of the people I walk dogs for today. That they had 3 dogs, and one of their dogs passed away a couple of weeks ago, and they're having difficulty coming to terms with that, because they are a member of your family, aren't they? That's the thing. So yeah. Dominic says, what year was the clock made? I believe it's 1950s, Dominic. I think that one, I've taken the mechanism out of it, that clock, and I think there was a date stamp that said something like about 1955-ish inside the case. So yeah, 1950s, I think, that particular one. Made by Smiths, a well-known clock-making company here in the UK. Dominic says, is it missing a finger stop? The phone, the kettle phone. Yes, it is. Christopher says, I'm using my projector TV as a TV in my home and I have a set-top box hooked up to get TV channels on my projector. Cool. I've not seen a projector TV for ages and ages and ages. We kind of thought they were going to be a thing at one time, but when LCD screens and that came in and plasma TVs and that, they could make those so big they kind of made projector TVs obsolete. And the problem with projector TVs, at least all the ones that I've ever seen, yours might be different, Christopher, but all the ones that I've ever seen, you really need a dark room to watch them, because it's kind of like watching a cine film. You know, you have to be in the dark to do it, whereas like a plasma screen or an LCD screen, of course you can watch them in the daylight. So I think that's why projector TV didn't really catch on. But I am hearing about phones and things now that have laser projectors built into them, so you can project stuff onto a wall from your telephone and stuff like that. So maybe the projector will have a resurgence. Right, I've run out of the chat. I've run off the end of the chat. I've caught up with everybody. So yeah. So yeah, this phone here does need a finger stop. I'm not sure what this dial is. This dial is a bit odd. It's not like anything I've ever seen before. When you take the finger wheel off, you upset the spring for the dial just by taking the finger wheel off, which is why I'm not doing it now, because I took it off the other day and it took me ages to figure out how to get it back together again, because it hadn't got much springiness in it. You know, it was, if you just dialed a 1, it hadn't really got enough oomph to move it back, but it has now, because I've retightened the spring in it, you see. So yeah, it's quite nice. It's immensely heavy though. It really is immensely heavy, this phone. It's really, really, really heavy. And I mean really heavy. So yeah. So it's been telephones and clocks this week. It's been the thing that we've been doing this week. Telephones and clocks. So they've been yeah, there's been a lot of them, shall we say. Yeah, rather a lot of stuff. But yeah, it was the first time I've been in an antique centre since before COVID, because I'm still very much not going where there's lots of people, and keeping my distance from people, and I'm definitely still wearing a mask if I have to go in the shop or something, because a lot of people have got COVID at the minute. Yeah. Michael T says, I cleaned my uncle's clock using ammonia on your advice. 24 hours, washed off, dried, oil the thing will not stop. 20 seconds all I got out of it before. Yeah, it's amazing what a difference cleaning them makes. Don't think it was me that told you to put ammonia on it though. I would have said use clock cleaning fluid, which certainly has ammonia in it, or some variants of clock cleaning fluid have ammonia in it, but I'm not sure I'd have dared try neat ammonia. So did that work, neat ammonia? But yeah, you can buy clock cleaning fluid. There's a company online called Cousins that do all clock spare parts and clock cleaning fluid and that. Don't buy your clock cleaning fluid from them. It's bonkersly expensive. Get on eBay and just type in clock cleaning fluid. look around and you'll get it cheaper on eBay. And you get concentrated fluid and you basically dilute it down, and you get back basically a litre bottle that makes at least 5 or 6 litres of diluted fluid. And the only problem with it is, and this is probably the same for actually using ammonia, it smells awful. The smell is like nothing you can imagine of this clock cleaning fluid. It's the worst thing I've ever smelled in my life by a country mile. It is horrid. Horrid, horrid, horrid. So what I do, I've got a plastic box with one of these sealable lids with a rubber insert so it properly seals the box, and I put the fluid in that box and then put the bits of mechanism or whatever I want to clean, and it cleans all sorts of brass things, of course, not just clocks, but put all the bits in the plastic box and then seal the lid back on to keep the smelling because the smell is terrible. It is really, really, really bad. If you watch The Repair Shop on TV and you see Steve and he says, oh, I'm just going to put this in the clock cleaning fluid, he's got this pan thing and he puts it in and that. If only you'd got a smell-o-vision, because that must absolutely stink that barn out when he takes the lid off that. But yeah, the smell is beyond belief. Dominic says, yeah, the ammonia smell is right up there with sulfur dioxide in terms of smelly chemicals. It's beyond sulfur dioxide, the smell of this clock cleaning fluid, Dominic. And it's beyond ammonia. It's not just ammonia. There's something else in it as well. I don't know what it is, but it's unbelievable. Yeah. I was told it smelled bad, and when I got this bottle of clock cleaning fluid, of course, the first thing I did was take the lid off, and so I went and sniffed it. Oh, I only did it once, never ever again. Never ever ever again. Dominic says, I'm scanning my Crouch film photos at the moment. Oh, cool. Right. Do you print your photos, Dominic? Or do you scan the negatives and then turn them into positives electronically? I'm curious. Christopher says, I got my Snowden trim phone on my CNET ATA. Excellent, Christopher. Excellent. Nice to know it's working, and everything. The make-break ratio is correct, because it's a bit temperamental sometimes on trim phones. But yeah, nice to know it's working. Don't know how a Snowden trim phone got to Australia though. Well, I don't know how most British phones end up in Australia, or how they end up in other parts of the world. But obviously, Australia being the furthest away, it's amazing that they get there. Absolutely incredible. Christian says it's rare for a Snowden trim phone to be put on Australian eBay. Yeah, it's fairly rare for a Snowden phone to appear on British eBay. So yeah, for it to pop up on Australian eBay is very, very, very unusual. Yeah. Well, they fetch stupid money in this country, Snowden trim phones, so I don't often buy them. And I tend not, the ones I've got generally don't tend to come from eBay. They tend to come from antiques dealers and people like that who bought one at an auction in a box of other stuff and nobody's quite realised what it is. So because when they pop up on eBay, they're just stupid money. They really are. But most things are these days. But the question is, with digital voice coming along, will telephones go down in price? You know, analog phones, will they go down in price with the introduction of digital voice everywhere? I've already had the problem at the radio station at Plesley Vale. The people that provide the internet there have have been in touch saying they want to swap me over to digital voice. I said, and what happens, what do you do about providing battery backup when the power goes off? They said, oh, you use your mobile phone. I said, no. I said, you need to provide me with battery backup. They said, no, we don't. I said, yes, you do. Because where we are at Plesley Vale, mobile phone reception isn't good, and Ofcom say that you must provide us with 1 hour of battery backup, a minimum of 1 hour of battery backup in the event of an emergency, if we don't have a reliable mobile phone signal, which we don't. And you know what? At that stage, the woman at Pluslet strangely got cut off. Wonder if it was because she couldn't answer the question, she put the phone down. But as soon as I mentioned Ofcom and what Ofcom have said phone providers should provide, she went strangely quiet and managed to cut herself off. That was interesting, wasn't it? Wesley says, I think the price of phones will go down. It's a bit of a faff with the lack of support for loop disconnect. I don't understand why they're not supporting loop disconnect, Wesley. From what I understand, when you have digital voice, you basically have a modem with an ATA built into it. And it's perfectly possible for an ATA, a little ATA box, to support loop disconnect. All the Grandstream ones do. So why can it not be built into the modem to support loop disconnect? I do not understand why they cannot build it in to support the phones, and I think it's amiss of Ofcom not to tell them that everything has to be backwards compatible, because that's how it's been since the beginning of telecommunications in the UK. The ruling until now has always been that whatever they do has to be backwards compatible. Whatever they do with the network must be backwards compatible. But now, all of a sudden, money. BT stand to make billions of pounds in scrap value from copper wire over the next 4 or 5 years. Just think about that for a minute. So when they come and take the copper wire down in your street, if they leave it rolled up on the column, on the post like they do, go along in the dead of night and clip it down and take it. It's your wire. It's your wire. It was to your house. Grab it. Is what I would say. They're only going to weigh it in, and it'll be required in years to come as well. Christopher said, all my GPO phones I'm using on my phone line go through a PBX. Yeah, all mine do as well, Christopher. It's the easy way to do pulse to tone. It's the cheapest way to do pulse to tone as well, to be honest. Oh, Gambo's here. Hi, Gambo. He says, hi all. Says I'm late. I seen an email earlier regarding an annoying flea bay listing. Oh yeah, you sent me a message about that, didn't you, Gambo? But I was at the radio studio at the time, and it's a bit tricky to read stuff there that comes in on email. So I've not actually read it yet, but yeah, I can imagine. Christopher says the Snowden Triumpho worked when it arrived. That's good. Always good when you don't have to do anything. When you can just plug it in and it works. It's always a bonus, that. Wesley says, I don't think it's anything to do with copper scrap, more than need to vacate exchanges before the leases expire. leases? I thought most exchanges were owned. But why do they need to vacate the exchanges? Why can't they keep the exchanges? They've kept them for over 100 years in most places. Why can't they keep them? It's because they want to do as little work as possible. They're moving you to digital voice because basically they don't want to have to maintain a proper telecommunications system. They want to do it all via computer, sat in a central office somewhere. Well, okay, if you don't want exchanges and you don't want engineers out in the field, okay, all sit in your offices in London, but because you've not got all those exchanges that you're paying rent on, because you've not got all those engineers out there working on the copper lines, surely our phone bills and our internet bills should suddenly become a hell of a lot cheaper. So why are they going up? That's just the question that I'd like to ask. Whereas it says the exchanges, they did a sale and lease back 20 odd years ago. Well, that was mega stupid of them then, wasn't it? Yeah. So basically they sold off the equipment that they need and then leased it back. Where have we heard this before? BBC? Yeah, it's like the idiots at the BBC that sold Television Centre and are now leasing back the studios from the property developers. It's absolutely bonkers. It really is. It's insane. Where do I start? Where do I start with it all? I've got absolutely no idea. But I know Ofcom is letting them get away with murder. Ofcom should be ashamed of themselves, because they really are not policing this very well at all. We're going to end up with crap lines that drop out. We're going to end up with terrible audio, because it's going to be compressed within an inch of its life. Basically, we're going to end up with the same problem that we end up with digital TV, in that unless you've got an absolutely perfect signal, it doesn't work at all. So yeah, I'm just waiting to hear about the first person who's died because they couldn't ring an ambulance because of digital voice, because their phone wasn't working in a power cut, and there have been a lot of power cuts over the last few days with all these floods and things. What are you going to do with digital voice then? Whereas it says they sold off all the exchanges when they were crippled with debt after the dot-com boom. Yeah, well, if they were crippled with debt, it was their own fault as a business for not seeing it coming and not reacting quickly enough, wasn't it? Whereas it says, I find it absolutely fine. Yeah, but you've probably not yet, Wesley, had a situation where you've been in an emergency and needed it. The problem is with power outages, and Ofcom have said, if you ask for it, your provider has to give you at least 1 hour of battery backup. They have to provide equipment that will give you at least 1 hour of battery backup if you need it. And I've asked for it, and oh, surprisingly, the person got cut off on the phone. But they're actually telling people, oh well, in an emergency, use your mobile phone. But this is a telephone company, this is a communications company that's saying, in an emergency, don't use our system, use somebody else's. It's a bit like going out and buying a Ford car and the dealer at the Ford dealership saying, "Oh, well, once or twice a month your car probably won't start, so you need to go and buy a Vauxhall as well, just for those days." It's mad. It's mad. If you're buying a Ford, why do you need a Vauxhall? If you've got a landline telephone, why do you need a mobile? It's insane. It's absolutely insane. My clock's working. Well, it says, with floods like we've had in recent weeks, a copper network wouldn't stand up particularly well. It would if it's maintained, Wesley. The thing is, it has to be maintained, which means people have to get out there with picks and shovels and get the Wellington boots on and go and replace cables and fix stuff and that. But the problem with this country is nobody goes out and fixes anything anymore, partly because we've got a minimum wage that's so ridiculously high nobody can afford to pay anybody to dig a hole anymore. £10 an hour to dig a hole in the street. It's mad. Absolutely mad. Why are criminals not doing it? Why have we not got chain gangs of prisoners like they have in America with picks and shovels in the street? Why are they not clearing all these drains out that have caused so much damage and so much misery to so many hundreds of thousands of people over the last couple of days? Why are they sat in comfy prisons at our expense? Why aren't they out in the rain clearing out the drains? Why aren't they replacing the telephone cables? Don't even get me on it. Christopher says, the Snowden trim phone I got has a BT line cord on it. Yes, it will, Christopher. All Snowden trim phones did have. You mean one of these, don't you? One of them. Yeah. All Snowden trim phones come with that as standard, because you did not rent a Snowden phone and have it hardwired in. They were sold in what were at the time called telecom shops, which are now BT shops. But Snowden phones are all refurbished trim phones from the 70s that had been returned, a new case is fitted to them, a new line cord, and then sold out in the telecom shops. A bit like the brown 746s. That's what the brown 746s are as well, what they called the yeoman phone. You never have a hardwired brown 746. They've always got one of these plugs on them, because they were sold in the shops for the Infone network, as they called it at the time, when they first started with plug and socket, because they couldn't be bothered to come and use a screwdriver to wire 3 wires into your phone anymore. Christopher says, and I'm getting a petrol generator to my NBM VoIP modem and my PBX in a power outage. That's interesting. Will the petrol generator work though? Because don't they have to have a smooth supply, which petrol generators aren't very good at doing? I think you have to have an inverter generator to work certain electronic equipment, because I've recently bought a generator just to run things like an angle grinder and stuff like that when I'm working outside, and it says not to use it for things like powering laptops or charging phones or stuff like that, because it's not a smooth supply. To do that, you need an inverter generator, which is generally more expensive, to do that smooth supply. Don't really understand a massive amount about it, because all I'm using it for is to power a light and a generator, and light and an angle grinder and a drill and that. So I'm not using it to power a laptop and things, but that's what they told me in Machine Mart, which is the shop I got it from. Wesley says the Yeoman phones are available to rent too. Were they? Didn't know that, Wesley. I've learnt something new. You could rent a Yeoman, could you? That's interesting. Could you rent other colours of 746 at the same time? Because I thought the Yeoman came after. After rentals had finished and they'd gone to like sell through. That's interesting. I'd quite like to know the timeline of how that fitted in. Dominic says, my Red Phoenix phone was made in 1980 or 81, so I wonder if it was ever actually issued as a regular trim phone. Yeah, it probably was, Dominic, but not for very long. The people probably didn't rent it for very long. They possibly realised quite soon after that they could get funkier coloured ones and buy them. So they didn't have to pay the rental anymore. So the one that they were renting went back and got turned into a funky coloured one itself. Yeah. So, yeah, I bet it did go out for 2 or 3 years perhaps. Wesley says, you're going to be popular with your neighbours, Christopher. He already is, Wesley. He's got a World War II air raid siren, so he's mega popular already. Wesley says, has NBN done away with copper, Christopher? That's a good question. I don't know. I'm sure Christopher will tell us in a minute. Wesley says, I can definitely remember someone my mother knew who moved house and ended up with a Yeoman. How she moved from was hardwired. So she moved into a house that had got a socket. But if she moved into a house that had got a socket, she wouldn't have been renting a phone anymore, would she? Wouldn't they have made her buy the phone? If she moved out of a house that was hardwired, got a hardwired phone, that in that house, because that was hardwired, she'd have been renting the phone from the GPO or telecom or whatever it was at the time. But when she moved into her new house, if that had got wall sockets, then she would have had a Yeoman, but wouldn't she have had to buy that? Not quite sure there. I don't know. I'd have thought she'd have had to buy that, but I don't know. Chris has come back with the answer. He says, yes, Wesley, it's copper wire from my home to the box in the street. Yes, Christopher, that's what I think it should be. They should leave it copper from your house to the box in the street, and then they should worry in the box about doing all this nonsense. Christopher says, I set off my air raid siren to celebrate my football team winning the grand final. Excellent. Wesley's come back with the answer about the Yeoman. He says, yes, you had to rent the primary instrument until the late 80s, regardless of socket or hardwired. Right, so even if you got a socket, you had to rent one phone. Well, that was a bit of a scam, wasn't it? Hmm. So they gave you a socket, but still made you rent a phone. What an absolute scam. So they're not just started scamming people, they've been doing it for a while. So, yes. I see, well that'll explain why she got a yeoman, because she wouldn't have got any other type of dial phone because they weren't available with GPO plugs on them, were they? So she would have had to have either a yeoman, a Phoenix phone, or something more modern, something like an Ambassador or something like that. Interesting. I know the yeoman phones are quite rare. It's very rare a brown phone turns up. I think I've probably got two yeomans. I know I've not got many. It's very unusual to get a yeoman. Very unusual. And I've got some cases for them though. I've got about, I might have got somewhere between about 4 and 6 brown cases. So if ever I get a yeoman that is with a broken case, I've got a case to replace it. Whereas it says, no, Phoenix phones were only available for purchase. Right, so you could have a yeoman rented, but you couldn't have a Phoenix phone rented. I see. Chris says, can I call live on CNET to explain how the Australia phone system is going to be? Will be much easier than writing it in the chat. I can't do it at the minute, Christopher, because it's not wired up to my computer, but we'll do it next week. If you're on next week, we'll do it next week. And I'll wait, because I have to do some jiggery pokery to get CNET into me computer so that other people can hear it. But yeah, we'll do it next week, mate. Remind me. On the last one on YouTube. Or at least the last one primarily on YouTube, because it will still go out on YouTube. It just won't have the YouTube chat on it. It'll have the Odyssey chat on it in 2 weeks' time. Michael T says, The Omen was on TV last week. Didn't know this before. Patrick Troughton played the priest, the second Doctor. No, I didn't know that either. The BBC have been doing a thing with some really good films on just recently. Poltergeist was on last night with Carrie Ann. I can do a Carrie Ann from Poltergeist. I do it. Anybody who's seen Poltergeist will get that immediately. Anybody who's not will be going, what the hell, is he having a seizure? But yeah, and also the other night, one of my favourite scary films of all time, purely because I'm very, very close to its production and I know some of the people who worked on it. The brilliant Shining was on a couple of days ago. I absolutely love The Shining because it was made at Elstree Studios, where I used to go and do all the Big Brothers and stuff like that, and I've met a lot of the people that worked on The Shining, and all that hotel was all on a soundstage at Elstree Studios, interior and a lot of the exterior, all on a soundstage at Elstree Studios. You cannot believe it. Every time I look at that film I think, this hotel is definitely in the mountains somewhere in America. It's not. It's at Elstree Studios. There is a real hotel out in, is it in America or in Canada in reality? And Stanley Kubrick, when they were making The Shining, he sent a couple of blokes out there for, I think it was less than a week, just to shoot B-roll footage of the outside of the hotel. But all the actors and that, they built a full-size mock-up of the Overlook Hotel outside at Elstree Studios. And that's what you see when they're out in the snow, trying to escape in the snow cap. And they still, at Elstree Studios, to this day, they still find remnants of the fake snow that they used in The Shining 40 years ago. Which is not terribly good, because they think some of it possibly had asbestos in it. So, Dominic says there was a very early 1953 BBC Robin Hood with Patrick Troughton that was accidentally saved because some engineers were testing telecine equipment, I think. Well, that's an interesting one. All the stuff that the BBC saved basically got saved accidentally, because they were such a load of muppets. They used to like wiping stuff. If ever you'd been to Television Centre when the BBC was based there, the incompetence of the organisation was stunning. Because I used to do a lot of stuff at Elstree Studios, and also a fair amount at TLS on the South Bank in London for ITV. When I went to Television Centre for a recording of something, the absolute incompetence of the BBC compared to the commercial operators was like properly out there. You know, he thought, what the hell have I come to here? The Shepherd's Bush Home for the Bewildered. It was unbelievable. The snobbish attitude of the BBC was unbelievable. It really, really was. To the degree that I walked out of a recording halfway through at the Television Centre. Just could not stand them any longer. Michael T says, wow, did you meet Stanley? No, Michael, by the time I was there, I think Stanley had already passed away. I did go to an event that his widow was at a few years ago. There was a event celebrating 100 years of filmmaking in Boreham Wood. Because although they call it Elstree Studios, it's not actually in Elstree. Elstree is a little village down the road, and the town of Boreham Wood is where the studios are. And there have been many different studios. There have been at least 5 I know of, and possibly more, different studio complexes in Boreham Wood over the years. And there are now only 2 left. There's BBC Elstree Centre, which is where they make EastEnders and Casualty, and across the road there is Elstree Film and Television, which is where they make things like, or where they used to make Big Brother, and where they used to make Dancing on Ice, and used to do Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and stuff like that as well. And also at least one series of Not Going Out was done there. But there was an event at, for some reason, the local school, the big comprehensive school in Boreham Wood, and for some reason that school has got a full-size cinema attached to it. You know, most schools have like a basketball court or something like that, and this one in Boreham Wood had a cinema. And and we went to an event there to celebrate 100 years of filmmaking, and it was a screening of a documentary that had been made about filmmaking in Boreham Wood. It was quite a long thing, you know. It was like a feature-length film length, you know, hour and a half, 2 hours, this documentary. And a lot of the people who were interviewed in the documentary were there. And I've told this story before about the Gold Man, and this guy was the chap at Elstree Studios who made things that were gold, or at least things that had to look like they were gold. And he had various ways of painting and electroplating and doing all kinds of stuff like that to make an item that wasn't actually gold look like it was gold. And one of the things he did was the gold room on The Shining, the room that's all gold, you know, entirely gold interior. He did that. It was actually vacuum formed plastic panels that he somehow made look gold. Took him ages to do it. Then the set burnt down, but that's another story. But one of the things he did, and I have told this story before, so apologies if you've heard this one before. One of the things he did was the amulet thing out of one of the Raiders of one of the Indiana Jones films. It wasn't Raiders of the Lost Ark. Was it Temple of Doom or was it Last Crusade? But it was the round amulet thing with a stone in the middle that for most of the movie they're wearing as a pendant round their neck, but at the sort of crucial moment in the film they put it on the end of a stick, stick it in a map in a floor in this tomb or whatever it is, and the light shines through it, shines through the stone and points to a mark on this map on the floor to tell them where the treasure is. And this thing, this amulet thing, out of one of the Indiana Jones films, this guy made it. And he said, I made 3. He said, no, it wasn't. I don't think it was Raiders, Dominic. I think it was one of the later ones. Don't think it was Raiders. I think it was Temple of Doom. But I'm not sure. And he said, I made 3 of these amulets. He said, because I knew they'd lose one. And he says, sure enough, they did. So I said, well, you made 3. I said, what happened to the other one? And at this point, this guy reached in his pocket and took out a screwed up carrier bag. You know, in the days when we had plastic carrier bags. He took out a screwed up plastic carrier bag out of his pocket, unscrewed it. We were sat in like the school cafeteria at this point, before this documentary thing had started. We were sat in the school canteen, which was attached to this cinema, and he unfurled this bag, this screwed up carrier bag, and out of it came the bloody amulet out of Temple. And I was so amazed that I just went, wow, that's amazing. He says, yeah. He said, this is the 3rd one that I made. I said, you still got it? He says, yeah. He said, yeah, they never asked for this one. And I was such an idiot that I never thought to say to him, can I just hold that a minute and take a photo? Which is what I really should have done, shouldn't I? She should say, can I have a selfie with that, please? Because there are so many people out there. If you watch Adam Savage's Tested channel on YouTube, there are so many people out there who have made copies of that, some of which are better than others. And I had the real one there with me. I had one of the real ones. But yeah, but there are all kinds of people like that. And Elstree Film and Television was a fantastic place, and indeed still is, because it's kind of a bit like a business centre for the film and TV industry. It's not a studio complex run by one company. It's actually owned by the local council, Hertsmere Borough Council, and they run it, and they kind of let out little bits of it to different businesses that do stuff in the world of film and television. So they rent out studio space to whoever wants to rent it. They will rent out workshops. If you are a carpenter who makes scenery, they'll rent you a workshop because you're an independent scenery manufacturer. Or if you do wardrobe, or if you're a prop house, they'll rent you space to put all your props in and stuff like that. And at one time I was there, and it was a beautiful sunny day in sort of late summer, and I came out of one of the buildings, and there was a woman sat on a step sewing a sailor's hat. And the guy that I was with at the time there, he spoke to this woman. He obviously knew her, and he said to her, "What are you doing?" He says, and she says, "Oh, it's just an hat for the new James Bond film at Pinewood." So I don't know how it came about, but it turned out this was James Bond's hat for the new James Bond film. The films aren't even made there. The films are made way across the other side of London at Pinewood. But for some reason, this woman was sat making his hat at Elstree Film and Television. So it's an absolutely bonkers place. It really is an absolutely bonkers place. They should do tours of it. They really should. The whole town of Boreham Wood, they should do a regular tour of it. People would pay to go, because it's such an amazing place for anybody that's interested in film and television history. And there are a few plaques around, but it really is a token gesture, because there is so much history there. I could sit here and tell you stuff about it, and we'd still be here next week, and I'm not have told you the same story twice, because they really should make something of it. But it's difficult to make something of it because TVs and movies in particular are a very secretive business, because they're made so far in advance, particularly movies, that if word gets out of what movie you're making, the other studio, the competition, could quickly put a similar movie into production that would come out at the same time and compete with it. So they are super secretive. They don't like letting you onto sets and things. They don't even like letting you know who's there filming unless you happen to see them. And they certainly don't tell you what they're doing. Most things have a secret working title while they're in production. A classic one was Torchwood. Doctor Who's Torchwood. When the new Doctor Who was coming out, this wasn't done at Elstree, by the way. It had nothing to do with Elstree. But when they were bringing back Doctor Who, all the scripts and screener copies of the first episode went out, not with Doctor Who on the paperwork or on the covers, but with Torchwood on them. And it's because Torchwood is an anagram of Doctor Who. And it was only later on, when it was successful and they came to want to create this spin-off series, it thought, oh, let's call it Torchwood, because it was an in-joke that was what Doctor Who had originally been called when it came back. So that's how Torchwood came about, because it was an anagram of Doctor Who. But the original Torchwood was actually Doctor Who, not what you later knew as Torchwood. Yeah. So they're super secretive, which is why they don't like doing tours and letting people in and stuff like that. I was lucky because I was doing stuff there. I was basically assisting in the production of things there. technically on Big Brother I was an audience member, but in reality I was a bit more than that, because it was an audience that had 30 people in it, and many of them went back week after week after week after week, so you got to know people. So the security didn't bother frisking you anymore after a while, because they went, oh well, I'm leave back again, yeah, well, come on, come through, and stuff like that. Yeah, but when you go as part of a big audience, you are very carefully shepherded around by lots of runners, as they call them, who keep you going and don't let you look in any buildings or anything, and they show you as little as possible. But when you're there as a smaller group, or even on your own, going to see somebody there perhaps, because I did know somebody who had a small production company there at one time, you could just go into reception and say, I'm going to see so and so, and they say, oh yeah, down there, second on the left and that, and of course you don't go second on the left, do you? You do go and have a little walk down the corridor and see who you might bump into and stuff like that. And so you do get to see a bit of it. And one of the things that I did, I got asked to go to a screener for a movie, because somebody had made this movie called The Man Inside. It was a British made movie, basically about a boxer. It had got a girl out of EastEnders in it. It was a terrible movie, The Man Inside. But the screener that they wanted people to go to give their opinion on this movie, because they wanted people's opinion, because they might have then re-edited it before it came out, you see, was in the preview suite at Elstree Film and Television. Now the preview suite is a tiny cinema within the Elstree Film and Television complex. It's only got about maybe 30 seats in it, maybe 40 seats, something like that. Very small cinema. And you went in there, and it was like stepping back in time. I don't think it had been decorated since about 1973. It was all brown velvet and velour and stuff inside, you know, very 1970s. And I went in, and somebody said, as I went in, said, the history of this room is that seat that you're sat in is the seat that George Lucas sat in when he watched the very first rushes for Star Wars. And I do seem to remember I said something like, yes, and they haven't vacuumed it since. But yeah, so that's the history of it. So imagine sitting in the seat that George Lucas sat in the very first time he saw a frame of Star Wars. And that stuff used to happen all the time, and nobody thought it was a big thing at Elstree, because of course it had always been there, but I thought it was quite a big thing. Dominic says, was it Big Brother's Big Mouth? Had a look a few episodes but couldn't see you. Yes, it was, Dominic. I only did it for about a year though. It was the season where the eye was kind of yellow and had a spiral in it. It was the year that Makosi Mombasa was in the house, and also the year that Ashleen Morgan, whatever her name was, Morgan Host was it, was in the house, because I had a campaign to try and make Ashleen win, and it almost worked. It almost worked. I was doing stuff. I was trying to influence it with what I said on air and stuff to try and get Ashleen winning, and we got her into the final. We got her into like the last 2 or 3. But yeah, it was Big Brother's Big Mouth. I did also pop up on Big Brother's Little Brother, but I was also on Big Brother's E4, which is what metamorphosed into Big Brother's Big Mouth the following year. But yeah, that's what we did, and I also was in the crowd at some of the evictions as well. Yeah, I was there at some of the evictions, but I'm just hiding in the crowd at the evictions. You sometimes used to go to an eviction and then go and do Big Brother's Big Mouth after, because the evictions were not live. Big Brother's Big Mouth was live. The evictions were not. They said they were live, but they weren't. They were actually done about 40 minutes beforehand. The evictions, 40 minutes to an hour beforehand. So when they said somebody was coming out of the house at like 10:30 at night, they actually came out about 9:30. It was time shifted, just in case anything weird had happened, because it was a terrorist target. It was, remember, at the time it was the biggest show on television and it was live, so it was a great target for a terrorist. Anybody could walk down the street at the side of Elstree Film and Television, and a well thrown hand grenade could have landed in the Big Brother garden. So because it was a potential target, things were generally not live from the Big Brother compound. The only thing that I know that was usually live was Big Mouth and also BBLB, because they were in self-contained studios. They weren't actually out on the lot where the house was. Dominic says, famously the Muppets were filmed at Elstree. They were indeed, Dominic. They were not, however, done at Elstree Film and Television. They were done at what is now BBC Elstree, across the road where they make EastEnders now. So that was done over the road, the Muppet Show, because that building was owned by ATV at the time, that later lost its franchise and that became Central. Supposedly based in Birmingham, they had a studio in London, and they were made to divest themselves of it, because basically the powers that be that controlled the franchisees of ITV said, you are the television provider for Birmingham and the Midlands, you should not be operating a studio in London, and they made them sell it. And they sold it to the BBC and left all the equipment in, but basically vandalised it all, made it inoperable. And the story goes, it took the BBC a morning to repair all the cameras, and then they used all EastEnders for many years. But yeah, so the Muppets were done at BBC Elstree, which is the place you see, the big skyscraper building that you see on the opening titles of Jerry Anderson's UFO. But having said that, the Dark Crystal with the Skeksis and things, I believe that was done at Elstree Film and Television. Labyrinth, which was another one around about the same time, was certainly done at Elstree Film and Television, but I don't know which sound stages were used for Labyrinth. I don't know. But I do know that The Shining, Jack's apartment on The Shining, the apartment in the hotel, I do know that was stage 8 at Elstree Film and Television. And the way I know it was stage 8 is because when you see the apartment in The Shining, they come up a few steps into it, and stage 8 had a floor that was sunk down in the middle, and it was actually the way through to an underground car park, but it was later a sunken bit of stage that they could put like water in and things if they wanted to, and this indoor stage. But originally it was the way down into an underground car park, and that was stage 8. It had got this drop floor in the middle of it, stage 8. and so that's what they use for Jack's apartment. So when they're actually coming up the stairs into the apartment, they're actually coming out of the underground car park at Elstree Film and Television into Stage 8. Christopher says, I'm using Panasonic TDA30 to pulse to DTMF. Yeah, that's the best way to do it. Use a PBX, Christopher. Cheapest way to do it, certainly. And you can also dial one phone to another to test them as well and stuff like that. It's way better than having one of these rotatone things. It says, and in my new home, gosh, he's moving, is Christopher. In my new home, I will be running all my phones on 4G. Ah, interesting. I've wondered about that myself. 3, which is a mobile operator here, keep offering me broadband using their mobile network, but I'm just not sure how robust it will be relying on a mobile network, because mobile networks sometimes go down. Christopher says, I live in a home next door to South Melbourne Telephone Exchange. Before I got NBN, I did have pulse dial on my phone line. I think that's got a bit jumbled up, the end of that. But yeah, if you live next door to the telephone exchange, that's a short loop, isn't it? You should get good reception on that. Yeah, cool. Right, so there you have it. But yeah, so going back to what I was saying about Elstree and that, they really should do tours of it or something. I've thought about doing a tour myself in September. I mean, we've missed it now for this year, but English Heritage do a thing called Heritage Open Days, where lots of organisations or individuals do lots of things. If they've got like a heritage building or something, they can open it to the public just for Heritage Open Days, which lasts for about a week. Or if you're like a historian, you can do tours of your local area and things like that. And I have done tours of Sheffield and stuff like that for Heritage Open Days in the past, and I have wondered about actually one day when Heritage Open Days is on, going down to Elstree and doing a tour at Elstree. But I don't know enough of it. I know some of the history of it, but I don't know all of it. I particularly don't know about some of the lesser known studios and that. I know quite a bit about Elstree Film and Television because I've talked to a lot of people there. You know, and I've literally snuck round a lot of doors and seen what was behind them and stuff like that. But yeah, and people say, how did you get on, Big Brother? How do you get on, Big Brother? And what I did to get on Big Mouth and that, basically, originally I went on for the first one. I went on because I got a flyer from somebody that's asking for people to go on, and I went on and did one. But when it came back for the next series, the way I got on was I just got the phone number from directory inquiries for Elstree Film and Television Studios, and I just rang the number about a fortnight before Big Brother started for that particular season. I just rang the number that I'd got as Elstree Film and Television Studios, and somebody answered the phone, as they do, like a receptionist or somebody. And I said, can you put me through to the Big Brother production office, please? And she went, certainly. And just put me through to the production office for Big Brother. So I'm then at the production office, and somebody else picks up the phone, and I said, are you guys working on a new series of Big Mouth at the moment? And this person on the other end went, yeah. And I said, oh well, I was on the last series. Do you need us back again for this year? And they went, oh, I don't really know. Yeah, possibly. Yeah, possibly. Are you available in a fortnight? And, yeah. That's not God. So I just rang up. Just rang up. It's not a published number or anything. I can't remember the number now. But yeah, I just rang up Elstree Film and Television, asked them to put me through to the Big Brother production office, and they did. Just phone. But yeah, that's how I got on. Yeah, I didn't go through the website or any of this stuff about Channel 4/Take Part. Didn't do any of that. Just rang up Elstree Film and Television. But yeah. Right, it is almost time, I think, for us to go, having done another day. If I go, Christopher says, I had my GC 746 phone on 4G for 2 months and I had no problems with the 4G ATA. That is interesting to know, because I'm wondering if when digital voice comes along, because I think it's going to be fairly rubbish, I'm wondering if it's time to cut the cord and just go mobile. So yeah, because it is certainly a lot cheaper to go mobile. So yeah, I'm considering that. So it's an interesting option. I think I might do it. I don't know. We'll have to see. I'll have to do a bit of experimentation, I think, in the next few weeks. So stick with us while we do it. Talking of sticking with us, we will still be here on YouTube next week. I'm looking at ways, going back to the thing about changing over to Odyssey, I am looking at ways that we can simulcast onto both YouTube and Odyssey at the same time. I'm looking at that as a possibility, but the chat will definitely be on Odyssey. It will be on the Odyssey server. But I know some of you like watch on a TV and do the chat on your phone, and if you do that, you will still be able to watch on YouTube, but the chat, you'll have to open a window on the chat on Odyssey, not on YouTube, to do the chat. But you will be able to do it in a browser on your phone. Just open a browser on your phone and go to andyshed.corpress.net/live. So it's basically an extension of this. This is the main website address, andyshed.corpress.net, and then /live on the end of that, and that is the page that in a fortnight's time that will have both the live stream on and also the chat. Hopefully. We did do a little test of it all last week, and it went well. Dominic and one or two others were on the test after the main show last week, and it did seem to work. We had a little bit of teething trouble for the first couple of minutes, but it did seem to work quite well. Certainly at my end, it seems smoother. Odyssey seems much smoother than YouTube. Yeah, much smoother. And it's easier as well for streaming on. There's none of this YouTube studio nonsense back end that you have to switch off after you're finished with YouTube. You just stop on Odyssey, and then when you want to stream next week, you just start it again and off it goes. It's way better from my point of view. Dominic says, have a great week all. Maybe a bit late next week, as I'll be on my way back from Swanage. Crikey, you on your travels again, Dominic? He said, I've also got the scans of Blackpool 4630 and Sheffield 74. Excellent. That's from his trip to Crich, I'm guessing. And Christopher says, I'll send a photo to show my 4G setup. Michael says, I suggest stay on YouTube. Nah, definitely not. Definitely not. YouTube is going to become intolerable. What you don't know, Michael, is what I know is coming on YouTube, and I know it's coming because they've sent me emails about it. But it is going to absolutely bombard people with ads, and the reason is they want you to pay for YouTube Red. Basically, they want everybody that watches YouTube to become a subscriber, and in my mind that is not how the internet works. That is not what the internet is for. I don't make any money out of YouTube. It's a question if I get a £5 a month out of YouTube, so I won't miss that £5 by moving to Odyssey. So yeah, changing platforms, and a lot of other people are, but YouTube is bad now for ads. It is going to get a lot worse. Christopher says, I'm stopping uploading videos to my channel soon. Don't blame you, Christopher. Switch to Odyssey though. Switch to Odyssey, mate. Carry on, but just switch. Yeah. So the live streams will probably still appear on YouTube, but I think they'll be pretty much unwatchable because they're going to force ads onto us, and they're going to force such an unbelievably high number of ads potentially. Nobody will want to watch anyway. So I'm giving people a way to watch without having to pay for YouTube Red. Because you'll notice there have not been any ads, or shouldn't have been any ads in the middle of this. This is because I choose not to put them in. YouTube are pressuring me to let them insert mid-roll ads into this live stream. I've said, no you don't. But it's only a matter of time before they just start inserting them anyway, against my will, because that's how YouTube works. So why should I support this multinational company that doesn't give a monkeys about me or you? If there is a way of doing something with a small company, with community participation, and kicking the big companies into touch, I'm all for it. Like I said, I've never owned an Apple device. I don't run any Microsoft software. I'm de-googling my life entirely, as much as I possibly can. I'm getting rid of all the big tech. None of the computers that run either here or at the radio station Google suddenly started playing music in the other room. Hey Google! Stop! Just bear with me one moment. Hey Google! Stop! Alright, Thor. One Google thing that I have got is a Google Home thing, but yeah, might even be changing that to an open source one soon, but that's another story. What was I saying? Totally lost my train of thought. Dominic says that's Google trying to troll you. Yeah, probably is, Dominic. Yeah, but yeah, like I say, none of the computers here or at the radio studio run Windows. Everything runs Linux, a form of Linux. Throughout the entirety of these live streams, it's all come off a Linux system running entirely free software. Not paid a penny for any software or any operating systems. It's all free open source stuff, and it's run for 13 seasons now, all open source. So there's proof you don't need Windows, you don't need Microsoft. You can do it all open source, which is what we do. Christopher says the old trains are stopping in Melbourne, so there'll be nothing to film for YouTube soon. Yeah, well, that's the way it's going, isn't it? All I will say about modern stuff is I recently bought the best vacuum cleaner that I've ever owned in my life. It vacuums up Thor's dog hairs like like they're on a non-stick surface. It's the best vacuum cleaner I've ever owned. It's a Hoover 119, and it was made in the late 1940s, and it's still going in 2023. And I paid 40 quid for it. You can keep your vacs and stick it where the sun don't shine. So that's what I think of new equipment. So yeah, if you've got any old kit that is still running many years after you'd have thought it would have been in the scrap, let us know in the comments and that, and we'll do something about it very soon, because old stuff is the best stuff. That's why I've got a clock from 1955. I've got a vacuum cleaner from the late 1940s. This computer that I'm doing this live stream on, parts of this desktop computer are about 25 years old. Some of the parts of this computer, because it's a desktop, I've upgraded certain bits, but not others. The keyboard, for instance, is 25 years old. Yeah, easily 25 years old. Anyway, that is about it from us for now. So like I say, all I did was I went into an antique centre for a whistling kettle, and I came away with a mantle clock and an old telephone. It happens all the time, but does it happen to you as well? Let us know in the comments and stuff. Remember, there is more from us on the website. This is another byproduct of when we move to Odyssey. This website will get updated a lot more, but if you want to go and have a look what's on it at the moment, it's here, andyshed.colepress.net. We are for now also continuing with Patreon. If you want to join it, it's patreon.com/AndyShed on there. But another thing about the switch to Odyssey is there may be better ways for you to support us than using Patreon, because Patreon takes quite a big cut of the money. There may be better ways to support us on Odyssey. We are working on that too. It's another one of the reasons that we are moving over. But we are still on YouTube for next week at least. And as I say, we'll probably stay on YouTube, but we won't be interactive on YouTube anymore. It'll just be like a mirror of the real interactive stuff happening over on Odyssey. Thanks to everybody for watching. Thanks for all your support, and thanks for letting us know about what equipment and that you are using. Most things you should be able to watch Odyssey on. All you need is a browser, and if you've got a smart TV without a browser, look into it, I would say, because you should at least be able to download a browser for it. There's some kind of app store on your smart TV, most likely. You should be able to download a browser, I would have thought. So yeah, look into it. It is definitely worth a look into. But from me for now, that is pretty much as far as we go. Everybody's saying bye in the chat. Donut says, bye all, didn't realise PayPal takes a big chunk. I thought more of it goes to you rather than YouTube. With YouTube, if you do something like a super chat on YouTube, I don't know the exact amounts. It's something like a 60-40 split in my favour, but they still take about 40% of it. So if you donate me £1, I see 60p or something like that. So you can see how they're making a killing out of it, can't you? Right, Keith says, bye Andy, I'm off for my supper. Brilliant, Keith. I think it's time for me and Thor to go away and have a drink and a biscuit as well. Christmas says, I got a modern telephone, it only lasted a week. Old GPO phones work better, like my 746L. True words were never spoken, Christopher. But that is about as far as we go for this week, folks. We will see ya next time. Back here, one more week, live on YouTube. Next week. At the slightly later time next week, possibly, of around about 7 p.m. It's all because I'm at a Stationary Engine Rally in the daytime next Sunday. So slightly later next week, about 7 p.m. for the final main YouTube show, and then YouTube will be but a mirror of what's happening on Odyssey the following week, because we'll be into November. Christmas is coming, but we'll still be here, mad, bad and dangerous to know as ever. So until next time, have a fantastic week ahead everybody, and I'll see you very soon. Bye for now.